Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm going to continue with this document that I put on Gumroad. It's free for you to download, and it's pretty neat. Because everything, I feel like every time you go out, it's a risk. Every time you drive, it's getting really dangerous out there, especially like in my state of North Carolina. There's a project here in North Carolina that all the sheriff are on the road. Sheriffs, policemen, they're just they want to uh you know assert you know the public, they want the public to be safe and all that, but they're getting out of hand. And you can see now that when you're driving on the highway, you see them lined up, all the sheriffs and all the police on top of the bridges, like on the bypasses and the bridges up, with all these devices and all that, drones and everything. So it is getting dangerous out there. So I've been changing my mind on these things about traffic because it's getting so dangerous, they're getting violent. Because everything, this what they call sovereign citizen movement is growing, and they think it's illegal and it's all that. So be careful, it's getting dangerous. So I've changed my mind on things like this because before, you know, if, when you get stopped, you assert your right, your constitutional rights to speak to the officer um, about your license and and all that stuff. So just be careful. It's better to get the ticket in don't conflict because it is dangerous. They're really getting aggressive. They think they're doing the right thing. And so they're getting very, they're training them in all these things because everything is changing. People are understanding what's going on with the police, with the courts and everything. So just be careful. So I changed my mind in the sense that I just, get stopped if I ever get stopped. I mean, I did get stopped last month, and I'll tell you all about it after the court dates. I'll share all my information and stuff back then, from back then when I go to court. So this is the training that I've had. I've had a lot of things, and this document was shared with me a few years ago. So I wanted to share with you some Gumroad. I talked last video about contempt of court, what to say, what is it about, and so everything is in this document. And now this document is really powerful. And you have to be careful because you don't want to just throw these statements or these questions out randomly. You can do it, but you have to understand the system. The first step that, in our class, they tell us, you have to learn the all the procedures of your state and the federal civil procedures. You want to understand that first, and then your state. And what you have to understand what's going on in your local district court, or in your local court. How do the state handles all the civil procedures. So that's the first step, to understand what's going on, so you understand why the DA says that, why even your court appointed attorney says what it says, and what's the judge, what's the drill, because it's a mockery of the legal system. And they already know, it's already been arranged. I remember back in the day, about 30 years ago, that I used to just a little side note of testimony. When I used to we had a business. We still have a business where we used to bring immigrants legally in the United States with visas. They had work permits and everything was legal. And some of the people from, Latin America, they didn't know the rules here and stuff. And of course, they didn't have driver's license or anything like that, but they wouldn't drive or anything. We'll drive them around. But sometimes they'll get in trouble, like arguing at home, getting drunk at home, and they will arrest them and stuff like that. And they always call me to go and translate for them and get them out of jail and all that. So I had a little bit of experience I think I've if I can count about 30, 40 cases where I used to go and speak with them with in front of the magistrate. And sometimes they will allow you to, before they book you like you're supposed to be, you're supposed to ask for the magistrate before you get booked, okay? So maybe the magistrate will let you go. In some of the cases that I went and talked to, right away they call me, I would be, and I remember I had bail money all the time in cash because, they were good workers, good people, and maybe just one wasn't that good, but I used to have cash and I would, every time they call me, and there was a lot of times, um, they would, I would go there and I would talk to the magistrate and translate for him. And every time I said, say you're sorry. We're talking about when they did not do any crimes or anything, just get drunk and maybe get in an argument. And sometimes even the person that called the police didn't want to press charges. So we'll go there, speak to the magistrate and say, hey, he's so sorry. He never hit anybody. He didn't do anything. He just, got upset when. And he was drinking at home also. But nowadays it's like that's a crime. It's like, it's like it's ridiculous. So back in the day, if when I used to do this in court, um, if you were if they call the police because you're having an argument at home and you've been drinking, there's no problem. It wasn't a crime. Nowadays, it's a crime. What's happening is the officer that comes, and they call the police and then come to your house. They do the charges. They book you. I mean, they put the charges on you. Not that really the other person charge you. They do. That's happening every time in all the states. So you have to be careful with that. So I will go there. And I remember one time, I said to him, say I'm sorry to the magistrate. And he said, sorry, I was just upset, but I never hit him. And the magistrate said, okay, go. They wouldn't book him, because and they used to let him now everything's changed. They used to let him call just being at the station without being booked yet. So back in the day it was better, the court. So I used to go to court with them many times. We go to court with them I was a translator for them. So I learned a little bit of the procedure back in 30 years ago. And I felt comfortable in court for some reason. So that's maybe why I'm doing this. So, so this document, let's go back to the document. Now, this document is pretty cool because it has uh, contempt of court and all that. So you have to be careful with this document. Just learn it, understand it, and understand law first before you can use this document. So this document has a real neat where he has 7 steps of objection. You want to learn that. Not consenting. Okay, so let's go over real quick. And like I said, this document is on Gumroad and you can download it. So 7 steps to objection. Okay, the judge, prosecutor says, if the judge of the prosecutor says anything negative, you can object. This is the proper way to object. So in the other right here, may I object? May I request a speaking objection? Okay, that's the proper way to do it. You can just say objection, but this is the proper way to do it. So, so let's go over it real quick. Okay. Um, so for the record, you want to always speak to the record because what you're doing in court, especially if there's a trial, if you're in trial, you want to speak to the record. That's why you want to properly understand and speak correctly because you're speaking to the record. Because just in case there is an appeal, you'll have the record. They're going to review the record, what you said and what the judge says and everything. So everything you want to learn is for the record. You want to establish the record for if there's a judgment and you want to appeal. So you want to, there's a review of the record, so you want to speak to the record. So always to the record. For the record, may I respectfully object, state I do not consent, or state I do not consent. Okay. So if the judge says no, overruled. If overruled, as for the record, may I respectfully request a legal consideration of the ruling. For the record, or number three, so this will be one, two, three. For the record, may I respectfully reject that ruling and take exception to the ruling. If the judge voluntarily says you do not have to state exception every time, because in several times you use this word a lot. Thank you, Judge. Is that free legal advice dispensed from the bench or legal determination? That's a good one. So that's if he answers no to that, if overruled, your objection, okay, if it says no or overruled, or your objection is noted for the record, then you can say this. So it says you can still stand your ground. As for the record, may I request the legal or factual basis for your ruling, Your Honor? May I ask what law, rule, regulation, policy, procedure, practice, principle, or precedent? They don't know any of that. They don't even know what you're talking about. So if no, as for the record, may I respectfully request a written judicial finding of the facts and conclusion of the law on this issue? If angrily denied, or even not angrily denied, for the record, always speak to the record. May I respectfully move for interlocutory declaratory appeal on this matter? Now, you have to understand what this is. This is masterful. I mean, this is beautiful. So you want to understand what that means. Okay. For the record, may I move the to stay these proceedings until this instant matter is adjudicated by the court of competent jurisdiction. So, okay, so for this one right here, number 6, for the record, may I respectfully move for interlocutory declaratory appeal. I'll say this right here is very, very important. You want to use this when you're in a situation that the matter is not going anywhere. They're speaking over you. You want to throw this one out. This is very powerful. So you want to throw that one out when you see that they're not respecting what you say. They are trying to hush you and all that. So the certain things that I've learned in our class, we do mock trials and all that. Of course, they're not the same as real court, but at least it gives you so find family members, teach, practice with your family, your kids, all this, teach it to your kids. This is a great document to teach your kids because they want to learn all this just in case they get, pulled over when they're teenagers and all. So this is a family thing that you can share. Of course, you want to be careful with it because it is very powerful what you say. But all these statements and all these questions, as within the law, it is you stay within the law. That's what's important, because contempt of court, if they slam you with contempt of court or threatened you, not really actually do it, there's a code of record. There's a record that you have been asking questions within the law. When you go off script and you start arguing and you start being disrespectful to the judge and all this stuff, that's when you can get in trouble. And that's when you can really go to jail, because contempt of court is 6 to a year in jail because you start fighting with the judge. Never do that because you get in real trouble in court. So this is a good way to understand that you're not really, this is all within the law. And if they still throw you in contempt of court and they still, take you to jail, it will be after a few hours, you will be released because you will stick to the law of the law on the record. So this is a great did I finish that? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I did finish the objection. So get that. So you see how I'm color coding here? So this is all objections. So I color code. You can do that to this document too. So everything about objection will be in blue. Everything about you know, what is I have to change this the blue also because this is objection too. I don't know why I did that. So everything that is criminal, I mean contempt of court is green. Now I have to change this one too. I don't know what I was doing. But anyway, color code this. And a good way that I do also, and we did it in our mock trial in our class is flashcards, is and index cards. You know, everything, write it, and then you can just reference in a card instead of like a sheet of paper. So that you can do that, but you want to memorize. So this, and most of all, not only memorize, understand what you're doing. And they, I went through this document several times through the years, and I have Googled and understand every single word here. Every single word here. So don't just read it. Okay, understand what interlocutory appeal is. Understand what every single declaratory appeal. Everything you Google it, you study it, you're like a lawyer, becoming attorney in fact, and understand it, not just read it, understand what it means. So you can, when you speak it out in court, you will understand what that is. All right. That's it for now. Have a great day.